Hello, everybody. This is Helen Yancey, and I'd like to introduce you to the new packet for portrait painting when you're using a photograph. Some of the brushes that we have in this packet, the photo portrait packet, are background brushes, clothing brushes, blenders, face brushes, and detail brushes, and I think you will enjoy using these brushes. I have already cloned the image. My original is Taylor Original, and I'm going to be painting from that clone, using it sometimes and not using it sometimes. I'm a big fan of layers, so the very first thing I'm going to do is put a layer on my canvas, and there's nothing on that layer. I'm going to select my brush called Background Base, with which I can apply colors to my background, either using the clone or using fresh color. I want to make sure always that in my blending palette I have checked Enhanced Layer Blending. In that way, I can or don't have to use pick up underline color, and I'm going to turn it off so you can see Enhanced Layer Blending. When you pick a brush, such as Background Base, which is what I'm going to use right now, you will have to adjust it. It's going to be on some images way too big, on some images way too small. So I want a brush that is big enough to do what I want it to do. The very first thing I will do is notice I pick with my eyedropper, I pick a color, but what it really is a density color. I lost my layer, so I'm getting it back. I don't want that color particularly, but I do want that density, which is the amount of light or dark. So see, when I add a color now, I can, on my layer, I can add the density that I want to have equally all around. And this is my Background Base brush. And I truly enjoy this brush because it's got hairs of the brush, which I think is a really nice thing to be able to have. I want a little bit of green in here because she's wearing green. I don't want a lot because green is hard to live with, but I want you to see how this brush works. Really, really pretty brush. Now I'm going to also use my background. So I have clicked on Clone Color because I have already cloned the image, and now I will be painting with the clone. I will be painting with those colors that are in that original picture. So you can see how this is very brushy and going on very nicely, and I can pick up the colors that I want in here. You can use a background blend, and that will blend all kinds of color. It does have color of its own. So be sure that if you're going to use this, and I'm going to reset it, and I want that brush smaller, and I'm going to pick up this color over here and put some of that over here, and make sure that my Enhanced Layer Blending is checked, and it is. So I'm happy with that. I'd like the outside edges to be of similar or equal value, and I'm now going to bring my reset. Well, the reset on this brush is way down, so technically that's what it's going to do. It's going to blend, and I can keep blending and make it very smooth, and if it's too smooth, then I can add texture with my background texture. And this is going to be a very brushy brush, but it will add texture to my background. And if I would put some color on here, that'll calm down the green. I can always again use my clone color if that's what I want to do. but I can add texture now to my background. And I'll show you what this is doing. See the texture that you can add, and you can play with that and add all kinds of texture to your background as you paint, over your paint, or within your painting. So that is your background texture, and it works beautifully. Now we're all over the place in this image, just to show you how these various brushes work. And I think you'll find them fun to play with. You can change and adapt all of these up here, and then remember, all of your options can be adapted to what you want to do. And then when you want to reset the tool, you simply reset the tool. For my image right here, to reset the tool is going to make it awfully big. So I'm not real crazy about that. But again, if I want a lot of texture in that background, this is the way to do it. Now I have gone over her hair sort of on purpose, quite honestly, because truly, if you bump into something, it looks like you bumped into it. If you go over the edge and then paint over the edge again with the hair, it will look much better. Now I can paint here with clone color, even though this is a blender and it is technically not supposed to have any color in it. Nevertheless, that way it won't pick up color in the wrong place. So, okay, you can see how this is adding texture if I want texture. So now let's go to the face, and I'm going to use the Flesh Cloner first. And I'm going to go on a new layer. New layer. And I'll show you how this works. Don't be panicked by all of this. I can take it right out with that cloner brush. I don't really want to do that with the hair right now. And this brush is huge. So I'm going to break my brush, make my brush smaller by using my Option or Alt and my Command or Control keys. And now I can paint. And I want this to be painterly, and just lightly move around that face with the Flesh Cloner. And don't make it too big, but don't make it too small either. Keep in mind that your enemy is a very small brush, because it'll make lines and then you have to fix the lines. So you don't want to do that, but you do want this to be a painting. When you're done with this image, you want it to appear and create the illusion of a painting, a painted portrait. Taylor has freckles, and if I'm going to concern myself with that, I'll do that afterwards. But right now, and I'll show you what's on that layer. That's what's on that layer. Working with the cloner brush, which is picking up the color from the original image, but I can change that at any time while I'm painting. But for now, I want to put on a base of using the cloner colors. And again, don't be afraid of brush strokes. It's a painting. You want it to have brush strokes. It's very important that you keep in mind that there are certain areas that will add to the feeling of a painting, and edges is one of them. You want your edges to appear to be painted. Well, they are going to be painted. And don't ever apologize for a painting done in this medium. This is a painting. And you can say it's by hand because nobody else's hand is doing this painting, just yours. So I'm going to go all over with this brush, and it will soften. If you're working on an older person especially, it'll soften lines, But if your brush is too small, you will create lines. And if there's anything you don't want to do on somebody's face, is create lines. Nobody wants lines on their face. Nobody under 90 anyway. So when you get to edges, and I'm here at edges, I'm going to want to get a smaller brush or make this brush smaller. I want you to see what's on there so far. Not that much. Not that much at this point. It's very important also when you're painting a portrait of a young person. Remember that your strokes can make a young person old, and it can make an old person young. That's fine if that's your goal, but most of the time it isn't your goal. So you do need to keep in mind the age of your subject and what you're doing with that brush. It's very important. So we're going to work along, and I'm going to go smaller with my brush, but very definitely want this to be brushy. Very definitely want this to be brushy. So I can go over the creases in the hand, but don't lose them. Don't lose them, because then she'll just have a blob and she won't have a hand. So you don't want to lose them. I'm going to make my brush smaller. Well, maybe let's do this first. Do the neck. And I'm going to be adding color to this, but this is going to give me a good base with my Flesh Cloner brush. Here I want my brush to be bigger because, again, a small brush can be your enemy, and I really don't need any enemies on my painting. Let's go here. Okay, let's just see. I'm not done with that, but let's see what our next blender is. Now I'm going to do the Flesh blender, or our next brush, just to show you how beautifully soft this is. This is a Reset 0 brush. So this time on my layer, I'm going to click Pick Up Underline Color. There are times when Pick Up Underline Color is real important. Enhanced layer blending works most of the time. It doesn't work all of the time, and it depends. You have to know where to use it and when to use it. Now this is beautiful. This is what I'm looking for. This is beautiful skin that looks painted. It is painted. So again, don't apologize for painting with an electronic brush. It's just a different kind of brush. Be proud of it. And it is by hand. It's your hand. Look how beautiful that brush is blending. So nice. I would work a little harder on the details of the hand, but for right now, I'm just happy with what I'm doing. Okay. That's the Flesh blender. Now look here how much we have on there now. We haven't painted every single piece of it, but we've painted a lot of it. And I'm real pleased with the way it's going now. Okay, I'm going to use a small brush now. We used the Flesh Cloner, we used the Flesh blender. Let's do Details Cloner on the face. Face Details Cloner. Okay, now again, you're going to have to adjust the brushes to suit your image. I made this image small for the purposes of demonstration, so that brush is going to be way too big. I want it at 100% opacity, and I want the reset to be 100%, and it's still, I believe, too big, so I'm going to drop it down even more. And now I'm going to paint with the Cloner brush. Details. Details. I want small detail, but I want accurate detail. I don't want to lose the likeness on her, and it's very important that details be accurate, but that details be painted. Very important. So all I'm doing right now is painting with the color of the clone, but I am painting. I can push out those eyelashes if I want to. Yeah, this is good. I'm happy. These are the details you want to get with that small detail cloner. Details like the lines that are the demarcation lines of the nose. And when they are painted, that's one of the areas that when people look at your painting, they know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is a painting. Don't be afraid of brush strokes. Brush strokes are your friend. Brush strokes are what they're paying for. So I'm using the detail cloner to paint the small details, such as the line between the lips. Very important, line between the lips. And you want painted lips. You don't want photograph. I say that like I don't like photographs. I do. But I don't want my painting to be photographic. There. Make my brush big enough so I don't have lines. And perhaps you can see the way this is going. I hope you can. And you can hear my dog. There. Look how much we have painted here. Well, that was not the smartest move I ever made. So now I'm going to have to go back to my flesh blender there and blend out the mark I just made. Very nice. I like that. I'm happy. Okay, now I showed you how that flesh cloner works. I showed you how the flesh blender works. Let's do, and I showed you face details cloner. The flesh blender, and on the big areas, I'm going to leave it that big. Because remember, we don't want lines. Just enough. On the fingertips, I'm still going to leave it that big because a small brush is my enemy. Then I'm going to make it a little smaller just for the highlight on the lips and the highlight on the nose, on the tip of the nose. That's the part of the face that's closest to you. So that's the part that usually is going to be the brightest. So we've added just some pretty lights to that pretty little face. And I want you to see just exactly how much is actually painted. Quite a bit. You could always do more, but you don't have to do more. So now I'm going to add another new layer, and I am going to pick Hair Base Cloner. I'm going to reset it just so I can see. Yeah, I like it big. So we're going to paint with the cloner brush on that new layer. And what we're going to do is bring in a base, a good base for the hair. I'm not worried about edges because I know that I don't want edges to be sharp anyway. On a portrait, you don't want them to be sharp. You want them to be soft and painterly. So don't be afraid of going out of the lines. I did not paint this whole thing. As you know, we just want to let you know how the brushes work, but we want to put a good base on this, good base on both sides, so that we can see good color on the hair and a good foundation for the hair. Technically, because her hair goes over the clothing, we should have done the clothing first, but it isn't going to make a whole lot of difference. That wasn't good, Helen. There. Okay, now I'm going to take my hair, light and dark, and I want, let's see what size it should be, 25. Okay, that's all right. I'm going to pick a color from here, push it lighter and brighter, and add some lights first. And remember, with hair, it's very important that you not make a picket fence out of these lights and not stripes, but you still want to give some light. So don't be afraid, and add some pretty lights to the hair. Nice big brush, and that way you'll be done quicker and it'll look nice. A little bit over here, not too much, because it is the shadow side of the hair. Then I'm going to go even lighter and brighter, make my brush slightly smaller, and just go in the center of those lights. And because Taylor does have very dark hair, I will add the darks, and then we'll blend. So for the darks, pick up a color in a dark area, make it even darker, come down the side of her face, because you know it's going to be dark there. Hooray for undo, huh? And over here, let's make it good and dark there, but we'll still leave the light. Make the brush a little smaller. Okay. Now we're going to take the hair blender and just sweep over what we have done. Just gently go the way the hair flows. There's another tutorial on YouTube on the Painter channel all about painting hair. Actually, there's several, but there's one that I did. See how quick and easy this is? And her hair will be rich and flowing. You can shape it as you go as well. Look how pretty that is. And just a few brush strokes. And now we have done the hair. Okay, now I'm going to go with the clothes blender, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to blend those colors together, keeping the structure. And here again, I would do it in a new layer, because that way I've got the safety net of the structure I've already painted, and I can do this. I'm not doing it in a new layer, but I would. I like layers. For me, it's the way to go. And you can make this into any kind of material that you want. I don't want a striped material, so I'm getting rid of it. But as you can see, we're spending just a few minutes going rapidly, but staying in the flow of the garment, just like you stay within the flow of the hair. So we've pretty much shown you how to use each of the brushes in our new portrait brush packet. Enjoy, have a great time, make some beautiful portrait paintings, and see you next time.